Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the High Ticket Coaching and Consultant Strategy and Growth Show. So, as you can see, we have a dancer here today, and
Hey.
her name is Natalia. Welcome, Natalia.
Hello, hello. Hi, everyone. Happy Friday.
Awesome,
Or
there you
I
go,
don't know
guys.
what day it is when this airs, but hey, hello.
Yes, yes. So, guys, if you're watching this interview anywhere else but within our private community called High Ticket Client Attraction Insider Circle on Facebook, be sure to come join us. I love getting the members and basically interviewing them just so we could find out what they're up to, what they got going on, and most likely how they could help you, whether it's in your life or in your business or whatever. And again, today we have Natalia. So, Natalia, tell us, what is it that you do?
So, I am the author of a cartoon-based book series for adults called The Shit They Should Have Taught You in College.
I
I'm
love that.
actually currently developing my second edition, which is The Shit They Should Have Taught You in College Relationships, because no one teaches us how to effectively manage our relationships, whether it be man and woman or our relationships to money or higher thought or whatever. But that's what I'm doing, thank God, during this quarantine. But I also am the creator of a 28-day program called Unfucking Yourself, which spawned from my first book series, because basically it was just like actionable steps to basically kind of shift yourself into more of an alignment of what people are seeking for. I mean, I basically was soul searching and found kind of like my spiritual enlightenment in the early stages of my 30s. And basically, that is the journey of what my book was about. I had planted some seeds of like the things that I learned. But what I realized is when you're trying to change your life, it's very important to have structure to keep you on course, because it's not always going to be fun. And it's easy to be like, oh, well, I'll just float away and do this the other day. But I basically made it fun though, because I found that in order to really create change, you have to want to do it, right? And the things that usually we find ourselves complaining about in life are things that are seeds that we planted years ago. So they're deep rooted in us, and that stuff isn't going to change over the like night. So for me, it's very important to make these unfun things fun to keep you going and keep digging. So then all that junk gets out and you plant the seeds and start dancing on a Friday.
Love it. So you said so it's a cartoon, right? So the book, why
The
is it a
cartoon.
cartoon? Yeah, do you have it?
Well, so I'll show you the illustrations. Because for me, my personality, like everyone's always been like, we all go through some things in life, right? Nobody
Mhm.
is exempt. I, for some reason, have been blessed to get my ass kicked multiple times with some heavy things in my life. And when I first moved out to Los Angeles, I was working as a production assistant for a TV network. But in order to be able to pay my bills, I started waiting tables. Now in LA, everyone's like, "Oh, are you an actress?" Blah 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 blah. And I was like, "No." But for 3 years, I was just talking to people about my life and the things I was going through, and the people just kept coming back to me and being like, "Wow, like you really like created some shifts." And what I found was it was the humor in it, right? But then when I started writing a blog to kind of recreate this stuff, once again, it's like, who wants to look at something depressing when you're already depressed and like
Mhm.
crying about life? For me, again, like laughing and being like distracted through entertainment is the best way to open to new thought and open to maybe thinking about things differently. And also too, I was always obsessed with The Simpsons back in the day. I don't know why. Um, but
Man,
this is the
You like the
cartoon.
Simpsons.
Yeah, so like I really wanted to also invoke that feeling of what it was in our childhood when we really did believe that like all the stuff that we were told was possible, but then
Mhm.
life hits, and like so this is my journey in my corporate career in New York City. But I found that like if you're talking about heavier stuff, cartooning is a lot more fun,
Mhm.
and
Now,
then
did you draw these yourself?
no, I hired a guy named Andre. He's based out of Toronto, Canada. He's super dope.
Uh-huh.
It took me actually about a year and a half to find the right illustrator. I had two other ones. Was devastated when I had to fire the first ones, because I think it's so easy to get caught in life thinking that what's in your head is what's meant to happen. Then when life has bigger and better plans, we get so attached to that idea and thought. I remember being so like, oh my God, this is never gonna work. It's over. And it's funny now looking at what it was the end product to what the original illustration was. I wonder if I have it on here. It's so much better. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's such a good lesson of the things that
Yeah.
I also preach. Oh,
So I
here,
think it,
look at that original cover.
oh,
Totally different vibe, right?
so hang
This
on.
one,
So
so
go
much
ahead.
better.
Yeah, the one on the
Right.
yeah.
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 So this is totally like what my whole thing is. Like, we need to stop hanging on to these ideas of how it's gonna be and let life show us. Life always has a better thing for us and we don't even know it. But yet we were like, no.
That is so
Why
true.
am I
I
doing it
know.
this way?
Yeah, I know that there are so many people, like, as far as so I guess what got you thinking this way as far as the mindset shifts? Because as you said, did you start off with this positive type of person, or were you total opposite? How did it work for you?
Here's the oddest, weirdest way. So ever since I was a little kid, I always felt this light, this bright light within me. And it's interesting now connecting the dots. I'll be 40 next month. Hey, how my light was always meant to be shining. And over the years, all people keep coming back to me. They're like, something that you said or something the way you lived your life had really inspired them to really create powerful shifts in their lives. And it's interesting, like in developing the book, I realized like all of my journey through my corporate life in New York City and even my like production thing out in LA was ultimately leading me to this. And I don't know, I've always had a really warped sense of humor of life. Like like I've been attacked and robbed and had a knife and got cut up like by two chicks before. Like my dad suddenly died and we had our one and only fight. Like my family members have addiction and all this stuff. And like some people I know would just go into this rabbit hole, right? And like, don't get me wrong, I have my days. But there's something inside me that's like, honey, there's so much more to like to celebrate, so much this and that. And so like, that's a lot of the lessons that I taught in my first book. And, simple things of like, throw your fucking TV away, because those advertisements and news that you're feeding your brain and your soul are part of the reasons why you are where you're at in your life, And so like, I don't know if I've just really ignored a lot of like the mainstream things that really have just kept my inner child alive to be able to like heal myself. Like we have the power basically to overcome anything in our life. And I remember hearing the spiritual speaker saying like, before we reincarnate or come into this life or whatever the heck you want to call it, into this as Natalia, I had a mission. And my soul and my spirit knew that I would be strong enough to handle it. But sometimes you also need to gain skills along the way, hence why all these things happen. And then eventually you like seek back into what I now know is my alignment, like back to what I was always meant to be doing. And I had all these things along the way. And, my silliness, I still go roller skating and everything. And I don't know, I've never really lost that. And I really realized how powerful that is, as silly as it is. Like I haven't been sick in 15 years. I don't get the flu shot. And it's like, I'm around people that get the flu shots and watch all these news stations of like, oh, do you have symptoms of this, this, and this? They get sick like that. And I'm a byproduct of that. Because I remember one year I went to like my annual physical. And I used to work in the pharmacy. And I remember like these papers were like this thin. Now they're like this thick. And it's not even like, do you have these symptoms? It's on a scale from 1 to 10, how much are you screwed up? And I remember filling that thing out and like walked in feeling great, walked out feeling like I had half of these things, because people don't understand how your subconscious mind works. And all day long with the TV and the media and social media, people are poisoning themselves and also like holding them back, So like, a lot of the stuff I talk about in my book and my program is not rocket science. I literally tell some of my clients to like go make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and go climb in the tree and leave your phone at home. And it's amazing the shifts people have.
Do they do it?
Yeah, I have to yell at some of them sometimes, but it goes back to like, our inner child, our spirit is always the best guidance that we can ever listen to, right? Only we are the ones living our life, and we get so disconnected to it that we forget how to trust it. And so for me, I'm like, let's do these things, layer it. But again, like people don't even remember what it is to be themselves or to feel like themselves. So I really, depending on who I work with privately, like the programs that I have online are streamlined for, the average person, but depending on like who I need to kick their butt, sometimes I'm a little bit harder, I've made people like jump out of planes before because they were scared as hell. But for me, to physically changing the fear in your mindset is a lot harder than physically changing your fear, because you have someone like me to like, boom, get out, or like I've had people go jump in the ocean.
Tell me this, right? So how do you help? What's your, do you have a coaching program? How do you help your clients?
So I have a coaching program. I'm actually going to be launching a group coaching program as well. And then I also just have the online course. Not everyone is ready to really like be that intense in terms of coaching. I find that like my book is kind of the gateway drug to be like, this makes sense. I want to change my life. To then I have a entry level course, which is like a week long program to like get some things moving and shaking, because my 28-day program goes in deep, you know, and it takes work and they got to be ready. And that's usually when I combine the coaching, which I call it like our field trips. Like back in the day when you're in school, you did all your work, and then at the end of the week, you would do something fun to reinforce what that is. So depending on my client, if they're like local or if they're online, like we figure things out. So each week, whatever the theme is that we're working on, we go out and do something physically to reinforce that, but then also to celebrate the growth in the work. Because for me, we have to be rewarded. I mean, dogs get rewarded when they're getting trained for sitting on a corner. Why can't we get treated, you know, on the weekend for doing our work?
I think that's the biggest thing as well too. The whole reward, that's so important as well, because I know that just like with my own journey, when I first started off, I was more, because I'm not sure, the whole pain pleasure, right? So when we either trying to figure something out, we don't do it, we get like we beat ourselves up, right? And then there's a second thing, which is, hey, you could reward yourself, right? And I know for my entire life, I was the type of guy who just beat myself up, and I kept making the same mistakes, and I couldn't understand. Versus that whole reward thing, once you really figure out the new actions and different things you want to take and then reward yourself, that is so powerful. So you
100%.
said that's
and I really am always like, feed what you want to grow and starve what you don't want in your life. But going back to this conditioning, I mean, and I did something stupid the other week, and I remember getting so hard on myself. And I'm like, Natalia, you're human. Like, let it go. Like, it's quarantine. We're all doing stupid shit every now and then, you know? Like,
how stupid was it?
got drunk on an empty stomach and like kept dialing this guy that ghosted me. We had just like broken up and I wouldn't stop, and I don't remember. And I like woke up in the morning and be like, cool, I didn't like keep dialing him because I deleted all the like threads. But then when I looked on my phone call, and I know better, but it's just one of those things. I mean, I was cooking for somebody and I wasn't even planning on drinking, and just 3 cocktails hit me, and apparently, but it is what it is, you know, like that's so out of my character. And for a day I was just kind of like in it, but then I'm like, you know what? It is what it is.
Yeah, it happens, right?
Don't drink on an empty stomach, and make sure to delete that guy's number before you do.
Yeah. So tell me this now. In terms of where you are in your life right now, what's your vision right now for the next level, next place you want to be?
Public speaking, once we get out of this. I really would like to, you know, when I first launched my book, I really wanted to talk to college students, because I really feel that our universities do kids a disservice in terms of managing the expectations of what really is going to happen when you got your diploma. I mean, like, I majored in communications and Spanish and like thought that like life was going to be a cakewalk, because up until that point for me everything came really easily, and then boy did I get my like intro to life in New York City. But it's just like I really feel that part of a college education should really prepare you for like what adulthood is like and the expectations of it, and also the importance too of like not jumping into marriage at a young age, because so many people that I talk to and I work with, you know, you don't really know yourself at 21, and from 21 to 30 a lot of growth happens. And I'm not saying everyone needs to like not wait, but like make sure you do a little bit of self exploration, whether it be physically travel somewhere, or like, you know, I went to college in North Carolina, like barely many people like went out of their towns, which is fine, but you're going to grow a lot and you don't even realize there's other ways of being until you do that. And so if you at least have that idea at a young age, people wouldn't necessarily be so willing to like think that's all there is in life, you know? And then these, like, especially with the people that like I grew up around and a lot of people I work with, they're very, very religious. And so they're in these very toxic relationships, showing what love looks like to their kids and cycling dysfunction because they're not willing to break free. And, you know, I just really hope that like the younger generations will just learn a little bit more about themselves and heal a little bit more of their childhood trauma, which we all have, because there's nothing worse than meeting a grown-ass adult who's still like a broken kid, you know? Like, what a waste of a life that is. There's so much more to learn and grow and evolve. But the problem is we're not even really taught as a society, much less put it out there. Luckily now I feel like spirituality and self-help and growing and evolving is definitely becoming more mainstream, but it's like what if we can plant that seed of change a lot earlier on? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. So quick question. How did you, do you read books? Do you listen to audio, podcasts and stuff like that? How do you spend your time?
I love books. Like, I'm a freak. I love the smell of a real book. I mean, my book is digital because I got close to a publishing deal, didn't happen, and to create the illustrations just didn't make sense from a financial standpoint. But I'm a sucker for books. Been listening to podcasts in the past like 6 months to a year because I've been taking actually a lot of online courses for email marketing and sales funnels. So the last thing I want to do is like read more. But yeah, I mean, I have a huge appetite for life. Like, I love quantum physics, and like that too, like, fascinates me because so much of what goes on in outer space and our history tells us why we're here where we now. It's not actually rocket science. Like, things repeat itself. There are patterns to all of this, you know, and like our mother's out there and like has so many answers, and yet we're just still like looking down at other people trying to think that they got it right. I'm like, hello, the universe and the planet's been doing this a hell of a lot longer than we have. Just step back and watch and learn. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right. Got you. So tell me this, in terms of where you growing up, right? So the person you are today, are there any events that's kind of you'd say, okay, are there any stories you could share from your past that's you could say, okay, this is who I am today and how I got to where I am today. Do you have any stories you could share?
absolutely. I mean, you know, first and foremost, like, my dad was an immigrant. My mom got knocked up with me when she was 16 years old. So I was like always helping my family. So I never really got to be my more creative side because I was the first person to go to college. So I did what I was supposed to do, right? But then when I was in New York City, I gained 40 pounds in 6 months, developed an eating disorder and a cocaine habit because I wasn't happy at all. But I was trying to pretend like I was because everybody was living vicariously through me. I was making more money than my family had. And so I was just numbing myself, like shit 101, don't numb yourself. There's a reason why your body's like, honey. So that was like a big wake up call, but ultimately, like, my dad got sick and had to get a quadruple bypass. And so I left New York City to go visit him to help him out. And it ends up that he had cancerous cells. So he died 3 months after that. So that was very traumatic for me because we also got in our one and only fight and never got to make it right. And so I really had to learn how to heal without being able to say the things that I needed to say. So I ultimately actually had my own service for him to honor him in the way that he wanted, photocopied a lot of his stuff and like said it to make my own healing. Because I feel like a lot of people, I personally actually have a whole nother view on death, but that's for another whole life. But my dad's death actually gave me the biggest gift anyone has ever given me in my life. And literally at the age of 26, I had a huge wake-up call of like, life is fragile and it's beautiful. What the hell am I doing in New York City, fat and doing cocaine? Like, I've got so much more to offer. So like, that was a really big pivotal shift between those two things. And then obviously moving out here was a whole nother batch of like disasters. Found like an abusive, toxic relationship because I was a wounded bird, like mourning my dad's death. I didn't know what these people looked like. So that was a very interesting learning experience. And from there, then like got attached to a guy that I didn't know was married, but he was my Prince Charming after this other guy kept telling me what a piece of shit I was. The other guy was like, you're great, you're wonderful. So once I found that out, that ultimately is what started me to become spiritually enlightened because I started realizing that all this stuff was circulating me. And even though my intention wasn't wanting any of that, there was something in me attracting all that stuff, you know? So I'm very grateful for all of that stuff. You know, and I don't even like hate any of the people that did me wrong or hung on to that stuff because clearly like their way and pain. And I know for a fact that I'm in a way better place than all that. And that's something that I always really want people to know. It's like, I think it was Deepak or somebody. What is that quote where it's like hanging on to anger is like hanging on to hot coal, trying to throw it to somebody, but you end up burning yourself more kind of vibe. But yeah, I mean, those are kind of like how I ended up here.
Yeah.
Never
So
thought I would end up here.
now, what about a personal development? Have you always been into personal development?
Well, here's the thing. So I actually growing up always really loved reading people's biographies. I've always been very inspired by learning through people's journeys. So in a weird way, that to me is a version of personal development. And then around like 29, 30, when I started becoming spiritually awakened, I started reading like a bunch of spiritual books, and just has unleashed a beast ever since then. I mean, I have 4 books right now. I have 2 books. Do you know who Gary Chapman is?
No, I
He's
have.
the author of like the 5 love languages.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm diving into a lot of his stuff, a relationship expert, and so I'm taking a lot of notes from him of things I want to like forward on in my book. Then I have a book from Kevin Hart, which he actually has a lot of wisdom. I'm actually reread that book. And then the other 2 books that I read in the morning with my meditation is actually 2 Deepak Chopra books. So yeah,
What does your
I guess
meditation
I'm
look like?
funky.
Yeah, what does your meditation
It,
look like? Is it?
I mean, my meditation varies. I mean, you know, I'm always preaching, and I've been slaughtered on social media for this, but especially for people who are trying to get into meditation, I'm like, meditation takes many shapes and form. Whatever shuts this thing off, to me, is meditation. Like sometimes like taking a walk in nature, cleaning, doing dishes. I mean, in the morning now, I've gotten really good where I wake up, I make my tea or coffee, light my incense, sometimes microdose a little weed, and like journal, and usually I'll read some of my either spiritual books or something, and then I'll meditate. So basically I'm like, I want to plant healthy seeds mentally for myself throughout the day. And then at the end of the night, I usually like to take some time to have like some gratitude. Because once again, like all these people that own TVs, it's like you turn on the news right away and it's stressful as hell, and you suck, and this, and you're already waking to an alarm clock that's like, like no wonder why you start your day off wrong. To me, I'm like, your day is like a sandwich. Like in the between it is a shit show. Like make sure the ends of it are things that are feeding you and nourishing you. And I know like for a fact that when you start to do that, things shift so quickly. And it doesn't even have to take a long time. I mean, like sometimes I have 5 minutes. Sometimes I'm in it for like 20 minutes. It's like whatever it is. But I think people have like this fear of like, you have to be like this. And like, yeah, that's great if you can get there. But if not, there's plenty of other ways, like whatever that is, to just calm your mind so you can talk to your spirit, because that's where your answers are for everything we're going through. Anytime I don't listen to that, I just chase my tail in circles and repeat that problem over and over again. And it usually costs me time and money when I'm like, oh, if only I sat down and did this. You know what I'm saying? Like, hello.
Yeah. So tell me this now. Next question becomes, what about skills wise? What skills have you, well, what one skill, I guess you could say, that's kind of helped you become the person you are today? What have you, what's one skill you would say you've mastered?
I don't know if I really mastered anything. I mean, I guess I guess I've learned, and I'm learning how to tell stories better, because I realize stories are powerful. And obviously like writing my first book, it's one thing to think it, it's one thing to talk to somebody, but to have it on a paper where someone else is interpreting what you're saying, interpreting how you sound, that's a very, very different beast in its own. And, you know, like I will say, like, by no means have I mastered it, but I've gotten very, very good at it. And it's very proud of me to say, because writing is one of the hardest things I've ever done in terms of putting a book together. And
so did you actually write your book? You actually sat down and actually wrote it?
Well, I mean, so there was a couple different stages of how that worked. Like, so hold on 2 seconds. So going back to my meditations, this is when I get a lot of my downloads, and that's from God, the source, spirit, whatever you want to call it. So I'm constantly jotting notes down, and this becomes the foundation. I also have a voice memo on here, because usually when I'm walking or like driving, I get these ideas. So talking to myself, writing myself all the time, that becomes the foundation then that I type on the computer, which is more of an outline. And then that's when I'm like, carpal tunnel, hey, out the wazoo.
Got you. Hey, well, we're running out of time here.
Okay.
So in essence, I guess the final question becomes, let me see, what's one habit you think is most responsible for your success? What's the one habit you would say? Was it? Laughter?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Because things get hard. You got to do a lot of things that you don't want to do in order to get to where you want to go. And if you can't find laughter in it, it's easy to give up, you know? And also too, if you make other people laugh, you can get better deals.
That's always a good one. That's always a good one, right?
Seriously though, I mean, like, I've been able to afford things that I shouldn't be able to afford because I've been able to make that person laugh, and then they want to help you. So
Yeah, love it, love it. Awesome, Natalia. Well, hey, if someone wanted to reach out and get a hold of you, what's the best way to reach out?
So you can go to my website, natalianemes.com. It's NATALLIANEMES.com. Shit101.com, I think, is still live. And then I'm on social media, Facebook, Instagram. You can Google Natalia Nemes and I'll pop up. And thank you so much. You were great. You're actually a very good interviewer, by the way.
Yes, yes.
Coming 60 out in a couple of weeks, you got to get better, right?
Yes, yes. I didn't have to do anything, man. You're a natural, right?
Oh,
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much for making the time to stop by the show. Really, really appreciate it. And do you have any final thoughts before we end?
dance today, kids. Life is good. And if you're shaking things up, your energy's in better vibes. So if things ain't working, at least you're changing the momentum. And if things are good, you're just putting out more positive stuff. And literally, I've danced my way to some good things in life. So
Awesome,
even if you,
guys.
yeah.
Yes.
All right. Take care.
Awesome, guys. Enjoy. Thank you so much. And we'll be in touch, okay?
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Okay. Bye.